I'm not afraid to take a stand, take a stand. Everybody, come take my hand, come take my hand.
Derek Bugard's life ended tragically a few weeks ago. That caused us, guys like me and Ken, to re-examine the lifestyle, re-examine what goes on behind the enforcer's life. Ken, what's going on?
Hey, Corey, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. Let's get right into it. I want to ask you, I want to get into how hard of a job it is for those guys to do. But first off the top, give me some of your own personal experience of what it was like for you, the pressure of dealing with being an NHL enforcer.
Well, obviously, no one's ultimate dream and goal is to be an enforcer in the NHL. Growing up as a kid, especially in Ontario, watching the Leafs play in Hockey Night in Canada, it's about playing the game and, scoring goals and having fun. So obviously, being put into that role is a difficult role. And, no one really looks at the picture of the roles that it's a very, very minority role as regards to the teams, that there's only one enforcer in each team where, so you may got 30 in the league, not even because, there's 4 or 5 teams that don't carry. So there may be 24 positions in the NHL available when you've always got young guys and minors waiting to get up. So it's a very pressured role in regards to you being able to sustain it and, being the enforcer.
Why do guys have so much trouble? Why do guys have so much trouble coping with that job compared to the job of, let's say, a goal scorer or a defense? Because it seems like the pressure is magnified 10 times for a guy whose his role to the team really isn't as important as one of the top players.
It is, and it's a unique situation where you look at people and say, "Oh, poor you go out and fight and you get paid." But you look at if you look at the reality of the role, is that the pressure of knowing that you have to go out there and fight, whether you win or lose, it's really not sure. But I think the bigger side of it is that you've got nobody to talk to about that pressure during the year. You got no other, guy in your team that really understands your role unless you've got, 1 or 2 other enforcers. And it used to be great. I was playing with Gino Ojic on the Islanders, and when he got traded there from Vancouver, he was saying how great it was to have one other guy there to alleviate some of that pressure. And when I got traded to the Bruins, he was real disappointed because now everything was, light upon him to go out every night and step it up. So
what did the two of you bond on? Like, what was the common thing between the two of you guys, other than the job? But, Gino Ojic had his issues in the past, but what was there between you and him that made you so similar?
Well, we both understood the pressure that we had to go out every night. We're the other guys who could just show up to the rink very relaxed, knowing, if they didn't score a goal, sure, the media would get on them, and sure, the coaches would get on them, but they're still going to get their regular shift, where we knew our role was we had to go out there and be prepared to fight and put ourselves on the line every night for the team, which was fine, but it's a very pressuresome job to have to perform on a nightly basis.
So a buddy of ours, Jim Thompson, played for the Kings. He played for the Senators, the Ducks. He bounced around the league for a while. He was an enforcer. I asked him, just tell me what it was like doing that job. And he said, the part I hated the most was that every day during the season or in the summer you thought about bare-knuckle fighting. How at any time, if you lost, you would be sent to the minors and traded. And for some of us, we used drugs and alcohol to deal with the anxiety of the job. For every one guy like Jim Thompson, how many guys are there around the league right now that are using drugs and alcohol to cope?
Well, you hate to point numbers. I used to have a few beer before every night just to relax because, obviously you couldn't talk to your roommate about the pressure you had because they wouldn't understand that role. But, it is a big thing to cope with anxiety, to deal with, for something to relax guys. And everybody deals it the wrong way. And, the sad thing about this day and age is that, the drugs are becoming such more addictive and more fluently to get, for some players if they really want them. So it's a sad situation that these players get themselves into, and they get addicted to them, and it's very difficult for them to clean up because of the pressure they feel during the game.
So team doctors won't hesitate to give away oxycodone and painkillers that can do real damage?
Well, I wouldn't go as far as pointing fingers at team doctors. Team doctors do as they go. Let's not forget on the side of the enforcer role that injuries are coming. There was games After games, I couldn't, hold a fork. I couldn't put my hands in my pocket. I couldn't do my tie-up because my knuckles were so swollen up. So, obviously when a trainer or doctor sees that, he's not going to say you don't need a painkiller. I mean, guys are separating shoulders or tearing muscles, during the game. So it's a fine line. The team does regulate. The league regulates the prescription drugs that are going out the door now. It used to be wide open, before they put all the mandates in. But obviously, you look at the injuries the players sustain, and it's not real difficult.
How important, like you were saying, that you had Gino Ojic, but how important would it be and how beneficial would it be if each team had two fighters? Do you think that would make a difference? And do you think that if Derek Boogaard had someone to talk to about his job, we might be talking about a different scenario?
Yes and no. I mean, was it Dan Scott in Minnesota? John Scott in Minnesota, yeah. So, I mean, a couple of big guys there. I mean, it's just unfortunate. Sometimes, the pressure of playing that role, what may happen, especially with a young player, is that he almost plays that character as a human, where he's this big, tough, crazy guy. He has to play that role. So you're almost playing two people. When he put his helmet on, he's this big, crazy, tough guy. When he takes it off, he's the softest guy in the world. And Bob Probert was that guy as well. And when you talked about Boogaard, he was the nicest, kindest, had charities everywhere. As soon as he put the helmet on, he turned into a different person. I mean, Stu Grimson, same way. It was just, you almost have to turn into two people. And does it get confusing to people of who you are at times? Are you this big enforcer guy? Or are you this, this soft guy? And I guess the reality is people are going to say, they just don't understand. And I don't really give a shit if they're like, not looking for sympathy, because I don't think the guys are looking for sympathy. But when we want to get answers to media saying, oh, he was just a druggie and alcohol, I mean, there's a lot of pressure and there's a story behind it. And every tough guy that's ever played the game understands that pressure in media. So we don't really need everyone to understand. But if we're going to get asked questions on what could have drove this is a reality of what happens.
I'm not afraid to take a stand,